So much fun. My next guest is Evan Marwell, founder and CEO of EducationSuperHighway, a nonprofit focused on closing the digital divide in America's most unconnected communities. Evan, it's great to be with you. Look, I remember sort of a decade and a half ago when I was talking about this. It wasn't the Education Superhighway, it was the Information Superhighway. And the comment, I don't remember who said it, but said it's full of potholes and it doesn't go everywhere. So how is the Education Superhighway fixing and giving a makeover to the potholes in the Information Superhighway?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. You know, we started off back in 2012 focused on one set of potholes, which was the potholes, as you described it, of our unconnected schools. Back in 2012, only 10% of our schools actually had high-speed broadband.
Wow.
And we spent 7 years taking that from 10% to 99.6%. We're now focused on the 18 million households, which have almost 50 million people who don't have internet access at home. And the good news is that the infrastructure bill is creating an unprecedented opportunity for us to actually connect those folks by bringing free Wi-Fi networks to the apartment buildings that they live in, by helping them sign up for federal broadband subsidies like the Affordable Connectivity Program, and by doing outreach to these families and these households that historically have been neglected in most of the work that's been done with broadband.
Well, I mean, I've been reading your reports and reading about this campaign you're running called No Home Left Offline, and would love to hear more about that, but also about the affordability barrier. And, you know, you just talked about some ways in which you're approaching that. But, you know, I guess when I hear that, I'm just wondering from a practical, tangible perspective, if I lived in a part of Baltimore and I was on, you know, a side of this where the costs of broadband were so extraordinarily expensive, how does that individual, how do that family get online? Can you kind of take us into the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, so, you know, today, affordability is the biggest problem that leads to the digital divide. You know, it is 2/3 of the households that don't have internet. It's simply because they can't afford it. They have available connections in their neighborhoods, in their buildings, in their homes. They just can't afford it. So there really, you know, are a couple of options. You know, the first thing is a lot of ISPs today now have low-cost, affordable plans that are available for folks. And, you know, people need to actually go and sign up for those plans. And those are widely available from both, you know, telephone companies, cable companies, and other ISPs. The second thing, though, is for many of these folks, they need to get signed up for the new broadband subsidies that are part of the infrastructure bill. So during the Trump administration in the second CARES Act, they created something called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and they funded it with $3.2 billion. And they're now transitioning that in the infrastructure bill to be called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And Congress put $14.2 billion into that program. So we have over $17 billion to provide subsidies for folks, and it will be $30 a month. And so if you're a household that qualifies for the subsidy, you need to go and sign up for it, and then you need to call an internet service provider in your neighborhood and sign up for a plan that $30 a month can cover.
Evan, a friend of mine, Larry Irving, who used to be head of the National Telecommunications Infrastructure Administration, is actually the guy who apparently allegedly created the term digital divide. Been talking to him about it for decades, literally. And I'm wondering whether your work that you're doing out there is going to make that term look like eventually archaic, like we will have solved this problem. So 5 years from now, will these divides in the country be solved, and will we have a kind of equity, if you will, in connectivity, or is this going to continue to play out?
Well, look, it all depends how effectively we spend the money that Congress has put up in this infrastructure bill. You know, if you look at between the infrastructure bill and the $65 billion that Congress has allocated for broadband, as well as another $20 billion that was allocated in the 3 bills passed by both Presidents Trump and President Biden, we have $85 billion. That is 10 times as large as the amount of money that was in for broadband back in 2008 when we were trying to get our ways out of the Great Recession, and at the time was the largest investment in broadband ever. But if we don't spend this money well, and that means making sure that we spend the money in a way that it actually connects the people who need to be connected, whether those are unserved households or underserved households who don't have access to the kinds of internet you need to actually function in society. If we don't spend this money well by focusing the affordability programs on unconnected households, then we're not going to make progress on closing the digital divide. Now, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to take that, and you may have been going there. I want to take it a step further. Brian Hendricks of Nokia has told me recently, in other conversations, that to a certain degree, money is not always the problem in these cases. Money is there, but there are a lot of other factors that have preempted success in getting connectivity, and I'm just interested in what some of those things are to unplug those barriers, if you will.
Yeah, so if you look at, particularly for households that have access to internet infrastructure but can't afford it, there really are three key barriers that are preventing them from getting connected. The first is awareness. A recent survey showed that only 25% of eligible households even knew about the emergency broadband benefit. And that's been a true of broadband subsidies for a long time. So we need to increase awareness of the program. The second is trust. Many of these families are concerned about providing personal information. They're not sure if they're actually going to end up getting stuck with a bill at the end of all this. And so we need to build trust by having folks from organizations, whether it's school districts or community-based organizations or local governments, reach out to them and explain the programs, and so that they know that, okay, this is a program I actually should participate because it's going to do good things for me and I don't have to worry. And then the third thing is we've actually made it quite difficult to sign up for these programs, both the broadband subsidies that are available from the federal government and the affordable connectivity programs from ISPs. And the good news is that the Federal Communications Commission today has a proceeding underway where they can actually fix a lot of the problems that have made it hard to sign up for the emergency broadband benefit as we transition to the new program. And ISPs are doing a tremendous amount of work to actually make it easier to sign up for their affordable broadband program. So those are the three key things. And then the other thing is, we actually need to be innovative in terms of thinking about these solutions here. And one of the things we're most excited about in the infrastructure bill is that Congress realized that 25% of the people that don't have connectivity today live in low-income apartment buildings. And so they put a provision into the act that said, we can spend some of that $42 billion on infrastructure deployment to put free Wi-Fi networks, just like the networks that people use in coffee shops and hotels and airports, into low-income apartment buildings so that we don't have to deal with all of these adoption issues for federal broadband subsidies. And we've done this, and we've seen others do this around the country in demonstration projects, and it's working exactly as planned. You turn on a network, and everyone in America knows if you can find an open Wi-Fi network, you just connect to it, hit yes on the splash screen, and you are connected to the internet.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. I can't believe it's the first time we've talked, so I hope you'll come back many more times. I want to thank Evan Marwell, founder and CEO of the Education Superhighway. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.